Welcome to Season 2 of Balance Boldly, the podcast where we get bold about our balance and campaign to shake the shame that stunts our growth. I'm your host, Naketa Thigpen, balance and relationship advisor for bold women in business and a few brave men. The Balance Boldly podcast is sponsored by All About Leverage, integrates LinkedIn and social selling innovation to build power networks, open more doors, and maximize client acquisition. From on-site to virtual training programs, concierge social marketing programs, LinkedIn executive profile optimization, speaking engagements, power networking groups, and LinkedIn coaching. All About Leverage is a full-service LinkedIn and social selling resource. Learn more at allaboutleveragellc.com. Of course, all of you who have been following, and to our new listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Season 2's theme is all about desperate acts. You know, those things we do to stay out of those dry places that we fear, those moments when we decide to take on something we shouldn't or push away someone we should, just because we're afraid of losing all of the goodness we've gained thus far. It's those desperate moments that we have that we obviously need to correct, right? So today we're continuing the conversation really on power and vulnerability. You know, we are all very powerful in so many areas of our life. Maybe in your business area, you are the man at work. You are the woman to go to for certain things. Perhaps at home, you are the person that everyone knows can fix every single fire that pops up, even the ones that are unplanned. But we are also human beings, right? Like there are moments when we're going to be vulnerable because vulnerability is a good thing. It allows us to open up and look at those kind of dark places that we've shunned the light from and see what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be folded. How can we correct something that we refuse to look at? It's important to be vulnerable, not shameful. Today's expert is an amazing woman, Vallone Mitchell. I have to say, when I spoke with her and a good friend of ours, Pat Schaefer, maybe, I don't know, I want to say it was a couple months ago now, and it might be longer. You guys know me. I'm like bad with dates. But we had an amazing conversation that lasted way longer than any of us were thinking it would. And we had such an organic time, that would be the best way to put that, just kind of flowing. Like we enjoyed each other's company. And it was our first meeting. The reason we enjoyed it is because no one was being pretentious. No one was trying to come to the call saying, you know, hey, I've written this many books, or I'm a contributor for this place, or I'm an author for that, or I own these many businesses, because we were all equals under the sun. We've all done amazing things, and we already knew that coming in, so we could just be women. We could be friends. We could build and really get an opportunity to know each other. I will say that Carol is an incredible person, not just because I had the opportunity of talking with her, but because I've done a little professional stalking. You know, of course, you always have to do your due diligence, right? So I want to give you a heads up of the amazingness that you're about to receive by doing just a sneak peek of her intro. Carol is the author of Breaking Through Bitch. First of all, love the title, because we all know a few bitches that need to be broken through. Breaking Through Bitch, How Women Can Shatter Stereotypes and Lead Fearlessly. It's about women leading and succeeding. Carol co-founded Talent Strategy Partnerships. She's working with numerous companies to identify and develop leaders to build the right workplace culture. Let's highlight that for a moment. The right workplace culture, not just workplace culture that has a few spa moments and a couple of free lunches. Some places that you actually want to work and return to. That's what she's doing with her and her partners. She helps organizations advance women using her proprietary assessment and development programs. She is a frequent speaker and writer on women's leadership and a contributing editor for the Huffington Post, amongst a million other things. That's just literally a sneak peek at who you're about to have the opportunity to share time and space with, just as I am. Carol, welcome to Balance Boldly Podcast. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful intro.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You know, I have been looking forward to our opportunity to just flow and engage and love on each other on open air, right? I've been super looking forward to it. Now, I know you were recently at a conference of at least, 11,000 people?
Yes, at the Society of Women Engineers in Philadelphia. It was at the convention center.
I totally missed out. How was that for you, shaking hands and kissing babies and being amazing in the room with everyone?
It was wonderful, actually, because the conference, which I didn't know when we became involved, it really is a conference to attract young women, and they see it as a career fair. So in the exhibit hall are all these amazing companies, and with me having come out of a science background, to walk into that hall where we had talent strategy partners, we had a booth, and we were selling my book, and we were talking about aligning culture and strategy, and you do that through leadership, of course, and these are all women, so we're talking about women's leadership. But coming into the exhibit hall, the first thing I see is NASA, right? And I'm thinking, oh, this is amazing, because, I wanted to be an astronaut when I started. That was sort of my first career choice. So just seeing all these big, famous companies there, it was just really exciting. And also meeting these young women who, so many of them really had it together, and certainly not in a way that I ever did when I was, 22, 24 years old. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is really cool. And to your point, this is a really different world now, not just to pick on the classification of the millennials versus the Xers and the Yers, but the millennials, I will say specifically, they have a lot more competition ingrained in them from kindergarten on up nowadays. So they're showing up and showing out in ways that we weren't even considering at 21, 22, 25 years old, because we didn't have to. The competition was there, but it was hidden in a very different way, where now they're expected to have a CV and a full resume at 18 years old.
And I think it also depends on, the family that you're coming out of. If you come from a family that, has, if you are, let me come at it differently. If you are first generation going to college, for example, what you're aware of and attend to is much different than if your parents are college graduates. So I think that was another thing that I was seeing at the convention center, was that clearly a lot of these women had grown up in an environment where they didn't have to overcome being the first and figuring it all out themselves.
Yeah. So. Now I'm thinking about that and picturing my own kids, right? Like, my youth are 20 and will be 16 before this year is completely over, and have been special spices along the way. And they're coming from a very different place than I was. I'm first generation for college and first generation for many, many other things, grad school and beyond. But my children don't have that burden, because it is a lot of responsibility and burden. So we have the dichotomy of their different personalities and the privilege and opportunity to give them space to grow and not be pressured with, oh, I have to be so different than my parents. Although I would be a liar to assume that they don't have those thoughts, right?
Well, right. Sort of that establishing your independence, of course, is going to be there no matter what, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Good point. But what I was thinking of when I was thinking about the conference for you, and before we actually officially started the interview, you and I were just talking about how wonderful the conference was, and all those people, and the things that can come up with that energy. There's a lot of power in that room, right? You can feel it when you walk in. Beyond being excited to see a certain table or logo or company, like, to your point, NASA was in the room, which is amazing, by the way. You see it and you feel it, but then the other side of you, the leadership side of you, who has been developing leaders for more years than either one of us would like to admit, who has, put her blood, sweat, and tears ingrained in the process for your own proprietary assessments and systems and things. When you pull that part of your hat on top of your head and you look back at the conference into the eyes and souls of the many people that you saw, whether you had an opportunity to shake their hands or not, you had to have a moment where you were thinking, I wonder if this is really their true self, right? Or what they look like when they're not on 10, because you have to be on 10 when you're in an environment where you're expected to bring your A game, right? Yeah. It really made me wonder about that side of, the Carol side, the author and Carol side, the leadership expert who's looking into the eyes, because people don't know who you are. I mean, they know who you are, by your popularity, but when they shake your hand and give you a hug or whatever, they have no idea the amount of expertise that's in your head, right? So they don't know that you could potentially read into their soul, for lack of a better word, and really be like, no, listen, honey, we really need to have a conversation when this is done. And there's a side of you that is always walking around with this power that many, many people don't know. And obviously those who follow you and follow your authorship and your popularity do know. But just like most experts, you're a secret weapon for those who have no idea what you really encompass. And that has to make you feel strong, and also make you feel or make you reminded, that's the better term, make you reminded of just how much you have going on kind of, behind closed doors, but also those vulnerable places for yourself of, remember, Carol, you're still human. They have no idea, so you don't need to overwhelm them with your gifts, for lack of a better term.
Well, it's interesting because I need to be reminded. As you were talking, I was thinking that it would be wonderful if I could keep in my head where I am and what I've been able to achieve, and feel that power. I tend to forget. I seriously tend to not think about it. So when I'm in any sort of moment, I don't have that stuff in me that is shoring me up all the time.
Right.
So, for whatever reason.
No, that's a good point. We all need to. I was just having a conversation with a client the other day. At the end of the day, every coach should be coached, right? Every leader should be led. Every teacher should be taught, and so on and so forth. And sometimes our power pack, that's, if you could imagine it being strapped to your back, your battery pack, your power pack, it needs to be refueled. And it's not always just with the right foods and the right exercise, which is very important, the right spiritual alignment, which is very important. But sometimes we need, those motivators in our corner, those people that we can call on to empower us when we just don't have anything else to give, or just to give us a little bit of a boost. Not that we're on E per se, but it's helpful to top off the gas tank every once in a while.
Well, and it's interesting. Yesterday we were, Pat and I were at an event for Smith College. We were doing a couple of hours with various corporate clients around best practices in women's leadership development. And so, I had some time to speak about my research, and it was really the thing that made me feel good about it was being able to look at people's faces and feel that they were hearing what I was saying, they understood. I felt like I was connecting with them, and that made me feel good about it. And I'm very vulnerable to the audience. If I see anybody in the audience that's looking, that I sort of imagine is either disagreeing or, is bored or whatever, it really throws me. And no matter how many times I get in front of a room and talk, there's that I have that vulnerability that I haven't quite been able to shake, So kind of the worst case scenario is going into a situation where you're teaching, you're in a classroom kind of setting, and people are there because they have to be,
right,
and they're not into it. That kills me. That will take me out for weeks. as far as just feeling really inadequate, if you will.
Yeah.
So talking about that, I'm more dependent on the external and the reinforcement than I would like to be. That's probably the next big hurdle I really, really need to address.
Now, you know what, Carol, thank you for being so open and honest about that. That behind the curtain reality is exactly what this podcast is for. The irony that we're having this conversation today, less than 12 hours from one of the public speaking classes that I teach over at Harcum, was last night. It's a 4-hour accelerated class. And we were literally just talking about the way, everyone has a different style of presenting and also receiving energy from the room. And it affects us all very differently, right? For some, it energizes us. For some, it depletes us. For some, it spikes our nervousness out the window, puts us on high alert.
Right. And I feed off the energy.
Right. I'm the same as you. Yeah. I'm literally the same as you. I will go as high as they are in the room. In terms of energy. And to your point, as much as that can be a positive, when there's great energy, it's like, woo, best speech, best conference, best engagement ever. If there are the right amount of people, maybe they're just in the right position, because I'll go off of that too. If I can't necessarily see them, I don't feel that same amount of pressure. But if they're sitting right up front, or the room is small enough for some more intimate kind of experience, at like an intensive style experience where you can pretty much see everyone's specific face, less than a couple hundred people or whatever, it does make a difference in how it affects you. And none of us would truly, outside of this moment, want to admit that out loud, because it shows a flaw of, well, what does that mean for my ability to show up and serve the other 99.9% of the room that had better energy than the few who were kind of like a slow leak. They were like slow leaking my energy out off the side because I caught that they weren't in their best selves. And I think for all of us, the reality is that's not a flaw that we have to fix, to be quite honest. I think it's one that we have to fold in as a part of our strength. Most of the time, it actually works in your favor for you to feed off the energy. And every once in a blue, that low percentage of time, and I know you're an academic too, you have all that qualitative and quantificated knowledge behind you, right? All of that, and, with perspective, giving things the right perspective, there's only a few times that happens. And yes, we could both, because I have the same exact process as you do, feeding off the energy. We could both work on better ways for it not to deplete us maybe as quickly, or for it to leave such an impression post the seminar, conference event, or whatever it was that we were doing. So maybe we can recoup a little bit faster. I'll be totally transparent and say, for years, my husband would say to me, you must be doing something wrong when you are on stage, because you come home and you crash. Like, I'm completely depleted.
Yes.
Right? Completely depleted. And I will say, although I've gotten better with the crashing part, like not to the point that I'm like, oh, please, no one talk to me. I still definitely need to take a nap and, turn things down and mute them as much as possible. But I realized that my inability to fold it in as a strength with consistent practice was partially because just being me, Naketa, I honestly was not real with myself that I was like a dancer leaving everything on the floor. And that's not what we do. We're not dancers. We're not entertaining. We're really giving a different type of value. Not that dancing isn't beautiful and majestic. We're giving a different type of value that actually says, for us and what we do, we can't leave everything on the floor. We have to leave something for ourselves, which means closing that slow leak of, energy zappers, so to speak, that are happening in the room. So I have to thank you like a million times for being so open and so honest about that, because I know that that's something I've definitely looked at too, and come up with little tips and tricks that when I remember to use them, they work. And, my default is not to remember, right?
Right.
You are so on point. So I want to take this moment to just pause for a second and to give a small opportunity for our sponsors who have been pretty amazing. So I want to take a moment and allow us an opportunity to give them homage. This season is brought to you by our power partner and season sponsor, Spreaker.com. As a product of the product, the Balanced Bully podcast utilizes Spreaker's high-quality tools to create, host, distribute, and measure our show. With the use of their easy-to-use iOS and Android mobile apps, podcasters and internet radio show hosts are able to record and store their valuable content and share across multiple networks like iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. For more information, visit Spreaker.com. So this segment is all about breaking expectations. Those relatable, reflective moments of vulnerability when we've honestly just had to really check ourselves or maybe check someone else on expectations that were holding us back, smothering us, and not allowing ourselves to be our best selves, to tap into our inner brilliance and our zone of genius. So, Carol, thank you so much for staying with us during our commercial break.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Thank you. So with breaking expectations, I really had to take a moment with everything we're talking about with power and vulnerability and just looking behind the curtain of those desperate acts that we do or not reflecting on some of the things that we should just do a little bit better. You know, we mentioned flaws, briefly, fixing them or folding them. Do you have any moments that you can think of in this, on the spot moment, right? Where you're like, when did I have someone either put an expectation on me that was unrealistic and not something that I wanted to allow to kind of pin me down and make me feel uncomfortable, or a moment when you yourself just gave yourself an expectation that no longer served you, like forcing yourself to commit to a goal or a previous passion that you're truly not even interested in anymore. You know what I mean?
That's a tough question to answer. Because where my head went automatically was thinking that I probably set unrealistic expectations on myself. And I guess that serves me in some ways because I'm pretty driven and will just keep going at it. But I think that it also sets me up for disappointment. And I think maybe that gets back to what I mentioned earlier about feeling having to remember what it is I've achieved, because once I achieve it, it's like, okay, that's done, but there's this that I need to do, and there's this that I need to do. So I don't celebrate enough, I guess, what I achieve, and I tend to forget about it until somebody brings it up, like you just said. As you're talking about the things that I've done, I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty good, But I'll use the book as an example. I had so much positive energy. I had such a wonderful time writing the book, and I was getting so much positive feedback at the beginning, as it was ramping up to being published, that I actually believed that it was going to become a bestseller. Really a bestseller. And so I was just having these what would you call it? I just thought the sky was the limit, and as time went on, and I realized that it wasn't this national bestseller, I kind of fell flat for a while, and it's like, well, why did I set myself up that way? Why did I imagine that? And what was the good side and the bad side of that? So, that's a dilemma that I don't think that I've solved that one, because I'm sure I'm about to set myself up again for, something else, thinking that I can do something that doesn't quite hit that ideal achievement, if you will.
Right.
And then knowing myself, I think, okay, if I hit that ideal achievement, how long would I feel it and have to be remembered? By the way, do you remember that you did this?
Right.
Right? I mean, so I think I that's a problem that I have, that I don't know what would make it go away unless, I'm pretty self-reflective and think about these things, but I still find myself just running, shooting for the moon, right? And being disappointed when I don't get it.
You know what, Carol, I think you made such a great distinguishment. Is that a word? I might have made it up. If it's not a word,
if it's not, let's make it.
Yeah, we'll make it an ism. But you distinguish something really great. So there's the part of us as high achieving women that absolutely should put high expectations on things that we are fully committed to. You were fully committed to the project of writing an incredible book, by the way, and you fully committed yourself to the process. So absolutely, you should expect it to, turn around the results that you set an intention for. You set an intention for it to be a #1 New York bestseller, or maybe even bigger than the New York bestsellers list. I'm not, familiar with all the details of how that world works. I'm very new to it, but
me too.
Right. But, with that said, I think that was a great intention to set. Why shoot low? And sometimes we will do that. We're like, oh, okay, and I'll, pick on myself, first partaker as always. I wrote a book in 24 hours. It's literally like a little 34, 38 pager. I only put a bunch of stuff in it that I was already having conversations with repeatedly with my clients. And one of them suggested, I would love for you to just like put this in like a quick book for me, and in fact, go one better. She set the expectation, which was awesome because we learned from everyone in our lives. And so why don't you put it on Amazon? And I was like, I guess so. At least it'll set it'll set me up as being quote unquote a published author. Right. And I will be very honest and say I did not put any expectations on that book, which was a problem. That was probably problem number 450. Related to that experience, but I didn't put an expectation on it, which is the wrong way to do anything, especially when you want to publicly manifest that you've done something. So one side of me was like, okay, in agreement with the client who made what I think was a great suggestion, get it out there. It wasn't the book that I wanted to work on. Selfish is the one that, was always supposed to be the book, the one that would be coming out, very, very soon. But I was like, well, okay, I kind of convinced myself, let's just put something out there. So I have a little author history with me. And when I have new clients or perhaps people who aren't ready to be clients, or maybe they didn't qualify because I have a filtering system, that maybe I'll suggest that they just pick up this little, $5.95 book off of Amazon. And if I get some great reviews, so be it. I was kind of like blah, with it. And then I never did anything with it, quite honestly. Most people probably don't even know that it's there. Half the reviews that I had after I gave out a few hundred, free copies and got some free, some good personal emails about it, I still didn't do anything with it. I didn't have people do verified reviews. I didn't direct people to it. I don't even talk about it most of the time. But with that said, what I did very, very wrong, opposite of what you did great, is I did not set an intention or any expectation, let alone a high expectation. And what it gave me was exactly what I put into it. I put very little energy into it and I got very little out of it. You put great energy into your book and a high expectation, and great things have come out of it. Although it wasn't the thing that you may have set the intention, and it's never too late for that, by the way. But with that, your book has led you to amazing speaking opportunities. I know that you've pulled chapters out and taught people on it and taken them to levels they couldn't have imagined getting to on them, on their own. You've spoken across the country, as far as I know, maybe even beyond that. For we're still learning each other, and you've gotten great contracts and deals out of it, and infused your book in ways that people can't, they can't even imagine repurposing and remarketing. And you've done a great job with that. With that said, although you shot for the moon, you still landed on the stars. And that was a good thing, as opposed to maybe an expectation of maybe saying to yourself, oh, I'm totally making this up, but right? I'm gonna write a sequel to this book that's going to be tethered, like a part 2, literally, just because maybe a client or some clients, some corporate clients or whatever, have asked you to do it or suggested it and planted the seeds, and then you put the expectation on yourself that was something you were going to do, and try to squeeze it into a really hectic schedule that you already have with the other amazing things you're doing. But perhaps you really didn't even want to do a part 2. You wanted to do something totally different, whether it was related to a book or not, but you felt forced to commit yourself to something that you're really not even interested in. The expectation that you set, I will have to say, is exactly the kind that you should. And it's part of why, partially, because you put in a lot of other work before the book was even written. It's part of why you are so accomplished. And it's why you'll be even more accomplished with every hour, because with the great action that you put out in the world by sharing something with so much vigor and so much detail and not being ashamed to say, hey, I'm an author, I own that, and I'm doing it. God blesses your action. And that's exactly what was happening. You were being blessed by your action in just a different way than you were anticipating. But had you not have done it and set an expectation of the moon, you wouldn't have come close to passing the clouds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're great. You're great. I just want to say that. You're great. Okay. I hope you hear that. You're great. You're welcome. So this has been great. So will you tell everyone, Carol, how to get in touch with you, how they can connect? Many of the listeners are women in business, and a few bold men, few bold and brave men, actually. And they work from everything from entrepreneurs through the corporate arena as execs and top leaders. So how can they follow up with you?
Okay. To reach me personally through email, it's CV V as in Victor, Mitchell at tsphr.com. And also we have our company website is tsphr.com. And to learn more about the book, and also I've written quite a number of articles for Huffington Post, but also for Fast Company and Safari Books and various other outlets. And there are links to all those articles and also podcasts from interviews that I've done. And that website is called breakingthroughbitch.com. All one word.
I love that title.
Well, and people really get it, because when women act like men in leadership roles and present these characteristics that don't jive with the expectations we have of women, they get behind their backs they get called a bitch, right? Yeah. So breaking through that, being able to be a strong leader by bringing in those traditionally stereotypic feminine characteristics and blending those in helps women be successful leaders.
Which is important. And I would say, to add to that, part of being a successful leader is making sure you take an unapologetic pause for yourself, so you don't get caught up trying to be something that you're not, because you're not bringing yourself down enough to just unwind and get settled. So Carol, before we go, I have to ask for you to share, what do you do to take care of you?
So my number one thing that I love to do is I have this beautiful pool in my backyard, and when weather permits, I just like to go down there and swim and just hang out by the water. And that's actually something that, and maybe this is because I'm a Pisces, all my life, being at the ocean and hearing the waves. We go on vacation in Hawaii, and we're going to be leaving in a couple of days to go there. There's something about being near the water that really somehow refreshes me and makes me feel really positive and content. So I would say that's my number one thing. When the weather doesn't permit it and it's in the middle of winter, I don't know. I probably just I like to cook, so that's I like to even look at Bon Appetit and recipes and that kind of thing and read. So that's the other way I kind of calm myself down and get into another space.
No, I think that's awesome. And when you're cooking, you get to touch water in a different way, right? You're constantly rinsing vegetables and everything in between. So
yeah, and the other thing is, I used to work in the lab at the beginning of my career, so I think the kitchen has become my lab. I like the technical part of it, so I guess
that's your unapologetic pause.
No, I know there's some people that go, "Oh my God, I hate to cook," and whatever. But
No, yeah. I mean, this is what balance is, right? It's custom fit for you, whatever works, and this works for you. So why delete it, right? I think that's awesome. Well, Carol, I have to thank you for being amazing, making yourself available in the midst of a crazy schedule and right before what I'm assuming is going to be an awesome vacation. I have to thank you so much for that. And I would also thank you. And I would also like to thank our listeners for, as usual, just taking a moment out of your day to allow me to plant positive seeds in your life, in your relationships, and in your business. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and share this podcast, and make sure that we are #1 on all stations so that all the bold and brave have access to valuable balance tools. Once again, I'd like to thank our season sponsors, Spreaker and All About Leverage. Make sure you go to Spreaker.com and allaboutleveragellc.com to learn more about all the great things they have to offer. If you are not already a member, come on over and join the Dreamers Blueprint community, a community of investors who have decided to see into themselves and balance boldly. Go to dreamersblueprint.com to get access to our private community. I also want to remind you to engage with me on Twitter. If you have a question, all you have to do is put #AskNaketa and go to at Balance Boldly to make sure you engage and follow up and share the takeaways that you got from our amazing experts. Carol Mitchell was here, y'all. Make sure that you give her some shout out love. She's on Twitter all the time. You know how I know? Because I professionally stalk her.
Naketa, thank you so much. This has been just a total pleasure.
You are so welcome, Carol. You have been amazing, and I'm so grateful you were here. You have been such a resource, giving us a behind-the-curtain look at what you're dealing with, your challenges and your vulnerabilities in the midst of recognizing and admitting that you are very powerful and you own that. That is a really awesome thing that many of us could make sure we infuse just a little bit more. So I have to thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Carol, stay right there. For our Balance Boldly listeners, I want to just sign off with a little more gentle honesty, just kind of segueing and wrapping up and giving you an encompassed way of seeing what Carol and I were talking about the entire show as a reminder that we always have to include the opportunity to be vulnerable. It gives us a sneak peek into those dark places that we've hid from for so long and doesn't allow us the opportunity to fix or fold any of our flaws if we choose to keep our eyes closed to it. Get vulnerable, get exposed in the right environment with the right people that you can trust to kind of shepherd you from the energy zappers who might come along and try to attack you in your weak moment. Allow yourself to be vulnerable so you can get healed and be stronger and more powerful than you could have ever imagined yourself being. Until the next episode, make sure that you set an intention to enjoy the balance of your day and do it boldly.